Hi guys, Rachel here with the Cackling Moon. Today we are going to discuss the topic of when tarot reveals someone's dirty. Tarot has a very lovely way of bringing up the most difficult situations and the most uncomfortable topics at times. So if you are curious to see some advice, my own personal opinion, advice, experiences with bringing up the dirty, when tarot brings up the dirty, please keep on watching. All right, you guys, so I'm gonna have the Moonchild Tarot in my hands, just so you know. It's just on the table. Sometimes I need something to fumble with. I have a couple crystals to fumble with. I'm a Gemini rising. I'm always like moving around. I always need to have something in my hands. So anyways, let's talk about the dirty. Let's talk about tarot bringing up someone's dirty. So by that, I mean when tarot brings up topics of, let's see. There's topics of divorce, topics of love affairs, love triangles, topics of, you know, secrets popping up in the readings, past experiences. Sometimes the tarot just has a really crazy way of bringing up stuff that your client was not expecting. A lot of times you're going to get your clients that will come to you with a specific question, and it's like, okay, I want a question on my love life, or I want a question on my career. And, you know, as you're pulling cards, you're going to start to notice other things might start popping up. This kind of goes hand in hand with the type of reader that you are. Some tarot readers read the cards strictly based off of just guidebook messages. But by that I mean like just what the guidebook definitions are. And then you have some more intuitive tarot readers who kind of do both. You know, they use like the guidebook meanings for the cards, but then they also bring in their own intuitive flavor as well. And then you have like mediumship / tarot readers who are very much connected to the spirit realm. And then you have like the psychic medium tarot readers, which is what I am. And those are connected to seeing into the future. They feel things, they sense spirit. They also read the tarot cards as, you know, the guidebook meanings as well, but then they bring in something from left field. And so depending on the abilities that your tarot reader has, the scope of the reading can become more than just what is my job, the outlook of my job for the rest of the year look like, or more than just that one little itty bitty love question that you have regarding your relationship. So I do have to say that because not all readers are going to be, you know, sensing a lot of stuff. But if you do have a more sensitive reader, these people, these readers may bring up the dirty, okay? They may bring up stuff from your past that you weren't prepared for. Now, obviously, as readers, those of you guys who are watching this, if you were a tarot reader yourself, obviously it is really good to be aware that if something pops up in a reading and it's not necessarily what your client is looking for, they're not asking for advice on that topic, it comes with experience on how you bring something up, okay? And then it's also, I feel, a mixture of that plus the client. So those of you guys who are watching this video who are sitters or people who are getting your cards read, it is also your responsibility, if you do not want to talk about a certain topic, that you say that to your reader, whether prior to the reading starting or if you kind of see the direction of the reading going in a direction that you are not comfortable with, you need to speak up and say so, okay? So it's kind of a dance between both people. There is a very good way, a very, you know, a nice soft way of bringing up stuff that pops up in the cards. I'm still learning my way of how to kind of like dance around topics. But I have definitely had my fair share of things pop up in readings. And more so, I would say, with the face-to-face or my one-on-one readings that I'm currently doing. So more so with those, I am noticing that stuff will pop up, and it's a little bit easier, in my opinion, it's a little bit easier to bring things up when you're actually face to face with the person, versus if you're doing a video reading or an email. You're kind of like, you could bring it up a little bit, but you're really not getting that validation from them because it's not live. So it's a little bit harder to bring up those random things. So I would say I'm gonna approach this this video from the direction of being on a face-to-face, in person, or a virtual live reading. So with me, I've definitely had different things pop up in readings. In my experience, I have had a marital affair pop up in one of the readings. I feel like what I do is I kind of just try to like tread very gently on the topic. And usually when you are looking at your client, and if you are paying attention to their body language, or you're paying attention to their facial expression as you bring up certain words, you will start to pick up on, okay, there's something there. So I usually have a very gentle approach to bringing things up. I try to say, you know, okay, so I know this is a little bit, you know, this could be a little bit intrusive, you know, so I'm just gonna kind of share quickly what I'm seeing, and then I blah, 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 I just kind of say it. That's one way I do it. Another way I could do is like, I've literally, like, the cards can be point blank. They're showing, you know, they're showing something's up. And the client, if they're looking at your cards, you know, they may not be able to know what the tarot cards, you know, mean, but if they're looking at the images, it's kind of obvious, you know, that there's something either negative or positive there. So I would also say that, you know, I've also done the whole like, oh, you know, oh, hi Starla. I miss Starla. I would also say, okay, oh, so, you know, when looking at these cards, what's the first thing that you're thinking? You know, what's the first thing that pops up in your mind? And sometimes you don't even have to say that. They're just going to start to talk. But I would say my best approach to bringing up these these topics, these things, is simply, you know, I just say, I don't mean to be intrusive, and I apologize if I'm interpreting this wrong, but my intuition is making me feel this, and then I say it. That's usually how I go about it, because I feel like it's very, I don't think it's right to kind of bring something up and say, no, this is what it's showing. Because the cards can definitely be showing, you know, an affair, or they could be showing, you know, something going on in the relationship, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's happening right then and there. Sometimes the cards could be reflecting something that happened in the past, or it could be something or an energy that client hasn't released yet. So maybe they're currently in a new relationship, but they're still holding on to ties of being cheated on from the past relationship. So you have to be very careful with how you deliver what you're sensing. Now, if you're a reader that is very energetically sensitive, or you have mediumship abilities, or you sense things, whatever you want to call it, then obviously you're going to be receiving from, you know, spirit, or you're going to feel things, or you're just going to sense it, or whatever, however you do your reading. And I think that that's kind of also something to disclose with your sitter prior to even starting the session. So when you guys are like, you know, introducing each other, when you're going like, oh, hi, hello, like, is this, you know, what I like to do is I always ask my client, have they ever had a reading done before? That's just kind of like to break the ice. And then, you know, I like to mention, okay, so this is how I do my readings. So if they say, yes, I've had readings before, okay, this is how I do it, because the way I do it isn't going to be how the last person did it. So I kind of like to do that. And then I kind of like to tell them, you know, sometimes I sense things, I see things, I hear things, I feel things, whatever comes through, I'm going to tell you. And that's pretty much what I say. I also disclose that sometimes things might pop up that they're not ready to hear. The spirit sometimes will say things that they didn't realize was, that they weren't expecting. But that's where I say it's important that if you're not comfortable with something, please tell me. Because I'm not going to like continue doing a reading on a topic that you're not comfortable with, so I'm very much aware that not everybody is going to want to hear the dirty, right? They're not going to want to hear about that stuff, or they're not going to, or maybe they're just not ready to deal with it. So you have to, respect that too. But yeah, the cards definitely have a way of bringing stuff up. I had a client a long time ago where marital affair came up in the cards. And it's funny because as I was, treading lightly on this topic, I was trying to say it without saying it. And she ended up blurting out without me really having to say it. She pretty much said, I had a feeling that was going to come up. And, so then she kind of went off and explained a little bit more what was happening. I've done readings for people who it was like they asked one question, but there was kind of something else I was sensing that came up in the reading. And then I found out later, so this was a video reading. I found out later when they gave me a review that the question that I tapped into that they didn't answer, that they didn't ask, was actually something they wanted to ask. They just didn't know how to ask it. So that happens a lot too. You're going to get you're going to get clients who are going to, have a card reading. They're going to want a card reading, but they're going to be afraid to ask the real stuff. So they're going to kind of tread on just maybe like an umbrella term, like, oh, I want to look into my love life, but they're not going to specifically say, I want to look into my relationship, my marriage is falling apart, and I don't know if I want to still stay married to this person, right? So sometimes you're going to get people who will go in. They will go in ready to go, right? They're ready to unload and tell you all of their stuff. And then you have some of the other kind of sitters or clients who are a little bit more, they're a little bit more hesitant. They're a little bit more closed off when it comes to revealing some of the stuff. And I think it's kind of a mixture of they're looking for validation within you as a reader that you're gonna, be able to pull it out of the universe and reveal to them. I also kind of think that sometimes people do it as a test as well to see if you're really legit. Which I don't blame them. They're paying money for a service, so they want to make sure it's real. But I also feel like those people who are not, if you're not disclosing, and I'm talking to my sitters now, my clients, or those of you guys who get readings, if you have a specific question that you want answered, and it's a very detailed and in-depth question, but maybe you are like, you're walking that line of like, I don't want to give too much information because I want the reader to be able to tell it to me. But then you also want to get your money's worth, and you want to make sure that you're getting the right questions answered, I feel like it's important to disclose if there's something you really, really, really want to have read, that you disclose that with your reader. Because I can make the mistake of putting so much focus and attention on your energy or your money and barely reading on love life, when all this time you wanted to know about your love life. The mailman just drove up in front of my house. He's gonna drop off my box of crystals. So I'll be right back, you guys. So yes, the mailman did come by. Been waiting for this package forever. Gonna put this on top of there so no one sees my address. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, you have a responsibility, you guys, as getting your cards read. You have a responsibility of, if you really, really, really want to have something read for in your session, please disclose it, especially if you're in a timed reading, which most of them are. You want to make sure you get it. You want to make sure you get your money's worth and all of that. Don't always hope that your reader is going to catch things, because not everybody is going to, okay? Not all readers are psychic. Not all readers have that ability. And you don't want to be disappointed, I guess. That's the word I'm looking for, disappointed. So if you're just itching for a certain question to be answered, rather than waiting for them to bring it up out of the, out of the universe, just bring it up yourself, okay? But also, to each their own. Some people will be different, and some people, some people will ask, some won't. It just depends. But yeah. But yeah, when it comes to bringing up really sensitive topics, you guys, it's really important, the delivery of your message. Really sensitive topics are not always easy to be, to take in. And you also have to take into consideration, is there an audience as well for these kinds of readings? Is there a bunch of people watching? Does this person have a friend with them, sitting with them? You have to take all those things into consideration, because no one wants their dirty laundry out for everyone to look at, I know I wouldn't. So you also have to treat those things with, everyone is different, but you kind of have to be a little bit sensitive to that kind of stuff. So if you're doing readings for someone and they just look completely uncomfortable with what you're talking about, and maybe they haven't said so, if you're feeling it, if you're intuitive enough to sense that, it's also your responsibility to stop, okay? I think it's just important to say that as well, because I feel like we could get kind of like on a reader's high, where where we are like on a roll, and we're like making all these connections with spirit, and we're like reading all this amazing stuff, and then we don't pay enough attention to our client who's sitting right in front of us. And if they look like they're not comfortable, if they're not engaging a lot with us as we're talking about a certain topic, it's also our responsibility to know when is enough, when do we put the brakes? And if that person wants to continue talking about that topic, then it's up to them to say so. So it's kind of like, you have to find your sweet spot. You have to find your sweet spot. But yeah, if you guys have never had a tarot reading done before, it is very much a experience, and you guys will be surprised what comes through in the cards. I'm just saying to be prepared when you go and get your cards read. It also depends on the reader that you have. Some readers are more intuitive than others. Some readers have mediumship abilities, some don't. Some readers are more experienced, some aren't, okay? So that's why I always say to investigate, do your homework on your tarot reader before you book something with them. And just to see, how does your energy feel with this person, and do you feel like it's going to be a good match, and all of that. Because you want your experience to be really, really, really magical, and all of that. And not all readers are going to deliver that kind of a service or an experience, okay? But also, as you are getting your cards read, you also have to be aware that if you are completely open, right, and you're allowing their energy to mix with yours, you're literally opening yourself up like a book, okay? And that's where that whole, all of the dirty stuff comes out. All of the skeletons in the closet seem to come out, and they're out for the world to see, So that's why I'm saying, like, when you're getting your cards read, if there's something you're trying to hide, just go with the awareness that those things could pop up. But if you are not comfortable with having them talked about, you can always say no, okay? I think that's where that notion comes from, where people get so afraid to have a card reading, because they're afraid of what's going to come out or what's going to come up. But that's also the exciting thing about it too, because I am a believer that whatever comes up in the cards is Spirit's way of bringing stuff up that you need to hear at that moment in time. So it's kind of like a trade-off, it's like Spirit's way of bringing up stuff that you need to address and hear. But if you are personally not ready to deal with it, then that's as far as it's going to go. It's not going to do anything else. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring that up. It's very interesting to hear some of these things, or not to hear, but to see some of these things pop up. I've had very juicy readings, but out of the sake of the confidentiality, you know, I don't go into anything like specific or whatnot, but I have had some juicy stuff pop up in readings, and I always live vicariously through my clients. I have a lot of single clients. My single ones, you know who you are. And I always tell you guys, I live vicariously through your readings. Some of them have the most like crazy love lives. Some of them have just the most exciting lives. And so it's kind of fun. It's fun for me to pull cards for them because I get to see, you know, a little sneak peek at what their life is like. And, you know, and I think that's also where it's important too, to have that bond or that trust with your reader, because if your reader is pulling up dirty stuff that you're dirty stuff, you know what I mean? You know what I mean by dirty stuff. But like if your reader is pulling up things that maybe your own husband or wife or your mom or your parents or whoever, your best friend, that maybe they don't even know. And then here you are in like this hour session with a person you probably never met, especially if we're doing this virtual, and they're bringing up stuff that like you've never told anyone else. It's a weird feeling. It is, you know, but that's the beauty of this, you know, this business, this thing, like doing readings for people, because you get to hold space. That is sacred space right there, you know? So I live for that. I love it. And I try to make the experience as pleasant as possible. But there's no judge here, you know, there's juicy stuff. I've had some crazy readings. Sometimes I had to take a moment after the session was done, you know, to recollect myself. But really, there's no judgment there. I think as just like with doctors, like, you know, the ones that like are looking at your private parts, right? The OBGYNs, like they've seen all different types of bodies, okay? And so when you're going in like thinking, oh my God, they're gonna look at my body like this and this, you have to like remember that these doctors do this for a living all the time. So they're seeing all different types of bodies, shapes, forms, things that are wrong with them, whatever, like they see it all. And it's the same thing for your readers as well. If you have a very experienced tarot reader, they have had multiple readings, multiple sessions with different types of people, different questions, different scenarios pop up, all of this stuff. So I can definitely vouch for that and say there hasn't been, you know, questions that have surprised me. Like I've pretty much read for a good different types of questions. I can tell you that. But I don't know. It's weird. Like when I'm in session with you, I'm in session. And then when it's done, I close it out, I cleanse, and then I leave. And half the time I don't remember our session because I'm channeling. So, so a lot of that stuff that pops up, you know, and half the time, you guys, like I have clients who follow me on Instagram. I don't realize that it's them that I'm reading for. Like, I know that sounds weird because I don't like to follow my clients back on Instagram. Some of them I do, but I feel like there's kind of like, in order for me to make it feel like a client reader relationship, I don't like to get too into their personal life. So sometimes it's like I'll be doing a reading for a client, and then if I'm talking to them in DM, I don't realize that it's the same person. Like, I know that sounds weird. I don't know how to explain that phenomenon, but I think it's just Spirit's way of like putting up a protection boundary between that person and me. Or also it's just like, I don't know. I don't go and investigate my clients when I get them, you know. I'm not like searching their names and all that stuff. Like, I'm just connecting with Spirit, delivering a message. When the reading is over, I don't remember most of it. I really don't. So it's crazy, but it's like in that moment, I'm like, ooh, wow, this is interesting. Okay. Like, this is what's popping up, blah, blah, blah. But there's no judgment. And I love that about what I do, because there's no judgment there. So, so find yourselves a good reader, you guys. It's really important to do that. But anyways, that pretty much is the gist of this video. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper with like the juicy stuff, but then I also want to honor the confidentiality of my clients. And so I'm not going to do that, but you know, If you have any specific questions, you can leave them below, or you can email me if you have a private question. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna go open my box of crystals, and I will see you guys later. Bye, loves.